Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about something that represents a truly historic moment not just for K-pop or for BTS or for Jungkook specifically, but for the entire trajectory of how Asian artists and Asian culture are being integrated into Western education and mainstream consciousness. We're diving into the news that Jungkook has become the first Korean singer to be featured in American school textbooks, and what this achievement represents goes far beyond just a mention in a book. This is about cultural legitimization. This is about the next generation of American students growing up with K-pop artists as part of their standard education rather than as foreign novelty, and this is about how far the global influence of K-pop has truly reached. So make sure you hit that subscribe button because we're about to explore why this textbook inclusion matters so much, what it says about Jungkook's individual impact, and how this represents K-pop transcending every barrier that once seemed impossible to break. Let me start by explaining exactly what we're talking about here because the specifics matter and they make this achievement even more impressive. We're not talking about a K-pop themed textbook or a specialty music education book that would naturally include various international artists. We're talking about standard American school textbooks, the kind that are used in regular classrooms across the United States as part of the core curriculum that millions of students interact with every year. These are the textbooks that shape how young Americans learn about the world, about culture, about history, about significant figures and movements that educators have deemed important enough to include in formal education. The fact that Jungkook as a Korean singer has been included in these materials represents a level of mainstream acceptance and cultural significance that goes far beyond entertainment industry success. To understand why this matters so much, we need to talk about what it traditionally takes for someone to be included in American educational materials. Textbook inclusion isn't about popularity alone, it's not just about sales numbers or chart positions or even global fame. Textbook inclusion represents a judgment by educators and curriculum developers that a person or phenomenon is culturally significant enough, historically important enough, and educationally valuable enough that American students should learn about them as part of their standard education. When you appear in school textbooks, you're not just a celebrity anymore, you're being positioned as someone whose impact and significance will be studied and understood by future generations. You're being written into the historical and cultural record in a way that very few people ever achieve. Think about who typically gets included in American school textbooks when it comes to international figures, especially from Asia. You might see political leaders who shaped world history, you might see authors or artists whose work had undeniable global impact, you might see scientists or inventors whose discoveries changed the world. But contemporary Asian entertainers, Asian pop stars, Asian musicians working in popular music rather than classical forms, these are not the kinds of figures who traditionally appear in American educational materials. The fact that Jungkook has broken through this barrier, that he's achieved a level of cultural significance where American educators have decided that students should learn about him as part of their curriculum, represents a fundamental shift in how Asian artists and specifically K-pop artists are being perceived and valued in American cultural consciousness. Let's talk about what this achievement means for representation because that aspect cannot be overstated. For decades, Asian representation in American media and education was minimal at best and stereotypical at worst. Asian artists rarely appeared in mainstream American entertainment, and when they did, they were often relegated to supporting roles or portrayed through limiting stereotypes. The idea that an Asian pop star, singing primarily in Korean, could achieve such mainstream success and cultural impact in America that they would be included in school textbooks would have seemed impossible not that long ago. But here we are, with Jungkook becoming the first Korean singer to achieve this milestone, and what that represents is a complete transformation of what's possible for Asian artists in Western markets and Western cultural institutions. For young Asian American students who will encounter Jungkook's story in their textbooks, this representation matters enormously. They're growing up in a world where they can open their school textbook and see someone who looks like them, someone from Asian culture, someone who achieved extraordinary success while maintaining authentic connection to their Korean identity and language. That kind of representation in educational materials sends a powerful message about whose stories matter, whose achievements are considered significant, whose contributions to global culture are deemed worthy of being taught to the next generation. Jungkook's inclusion in American textbooks isn't just about him as an individual, it's about opening doors and expanding possibilities for how Asian artists and Asian culture are perceived and valued in American society. Now let's talk about what specifically about Jungkook and his career made him the first Korean singer to achieve this textbook inclusion. This didn't happen by accident, it's the result of a combination of factors that came together to create a level of impact and significance that educators recognized as worthy of including in curriculum. First and foremost, there's the sheer scale of commercial success and global impact that Jungkook has achieved both as a member of BTS and as a solo artist. We're talking about someone who has reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, who has broken streaming records, who has sold millions of albums, who has performed in stadiums around the world. That level of commercial success in the American music market is itself noteworthy and represents Korean music achieving parity with the biggest Western artists. But commercial success alone doesn't typically translate to textbook inclusion because plenty of commercially successful artists never make it into educational materials. What sets Jungkook apart is the cultural impact and the way his success represents larger shifts in global culture and media consumption. His story and BTS's story more broadly represents the rise of K-pop as a global phenomenon, the increasing influence of Korean culture internationally, the way digital platforms and social media have changed how music travels across borders and cultural boundaries, and the way younger generations are consuming culture in ways that transcend traditional geographic and linguistic limitations. These are all themes that are relevant to understanding contemporary global culture and society, which is exactly the kind of thing that educational curriculum aims to help students understand. The textbook inclusion also likely reflects the way Jungkook and BTS have engaged with social issues and used their platform for positive influence beyond just entertainment. BTS has been involved in campaigns addressing mental health, self-love, social justice, and global issues. They've spoken at the United Nations, they've partnered with UNICEF on anti-violence campaigns, they've used their music to address themes of identity, belonging, and social pressure that resonate with young people globally. This dimension of social consciousness and positive influence makes them more than just entertainment figures, it makes them cultural leaders whose impact extends into areas that educators value and want students to learn about. Let me talk about what this means for K-pop as a genre and as a cultural movement because Jungkook's textbook inclusion represents validation and legitimization of K-pop at a level that has significant implications. For years, K-pop faced skepticism and dismissal in Western markets and media. It was often treated as a novelty, as a niche interest, as something foreign and different that might have devoted fans but wouldn't achieve true mainstream acceptance or be taken seriously by cultural institutions. The fact that a K-pop artist is now being included in American school textbooks, being positioned as someone that American students should learn about as part of their education, completely transforms that narrative. It's a declaration that K-pop is not a passing trend or a niche phenomenon, it's a significant global cultural movement that has permanently changed the landscape of popular music and international cultural exchange. This textbook inclusion also validates all the fans who have supported K-pop over the years when it wasn't mainstream, when they faced mockery or dismissal for their interest in Korean music, when they had to defend the legitimacy and artistic value of the music they loved. ARMY and K-pop fans more broadly have always known that this music and these artists were significant and impactful and deserving of recognition. Now that recognition is being formalized in educational institutions, and that validation matters. It confirms that what fans saw in this music and these artists all along was real and significant enough that it's now being taught to students as part of understanding contemporary global culture. Let's also acknowledge the practical implications of having Jungkook featured in school textbooks because this creates exposure and education about K-pop for students who might never have encountered it otherwise. Not every American student is going to actively seek out K-pop or Korean culture on their own, but if they encounter it in their school curriculum, if they learn about Jungkook's achievements and impact as part of their regular education, that creates a baseline of familiarity and understanding that changes how they perceive Korean artists and culture going forward. This is how cultural understanding and appreciation gets built at a societal level, through education and exposure that helps people understand and value cultures and contributions from around the world. The educational aspect is also important because when students learn about Jungkook and his impact, they're not just learning about one artist, they're learning about larger themes of globalization, cultural exchange, the role of digital media in spreading music and culture, the way language barriers are becoming less relevant in music consumption, the growing influence of Asian culture in global popular culture, and the way determination and talent can transcend geographic and cultural boundaries. These are valuable educational lessons that go beyond just knowing who Jungkook is, and that's likely a big part of why educators decided his story was worth including in curriculum. Now let's talk about what this achievement means for Jungkook specifically as an artist and as a cultural figure. Being the first Korean singer included in American school textbooks is a historic achievement that will be part of his legacy forever. This is the kind of milestone that gets mentioned in future histories of K-pop, in future discussions of globalization and cultural exchange, in future examinations of how Asian artists broke into Western markets. Decades from now, when people look back at this era of music and cultural history, Jungkook's textbook inclusion will be cited as a pivotal moment that demonstrated how far K-pop's influence had reached. This achievement also positions Jungkook not just as an entertainer but as a cultural ambassador and a significant figure in Korean soft power and cultural diplomacy. When American students learn about him in their textbooks, they're also learning about Korea, about Korean culture, about the Korean music industry and its global impact. Jungkook becomes a bridge for cultural understanding and appreciation, introducing young Americans to aspects of Korean culture that they might not otherwise encounter. That role as cultural ambassador carries weight and responsibility, and it's a testament to how Jungkook has conducted himself and the positive image he's projected that he's being positioned in this role. I want to talk about the timing of this achievement because it's worth noting that this is happening now, in 2026, when Jungkook and BTS have just completed their military service and returned to active promotion. The fact that his impact and significance was so substantial that he achieved textbook inclusion even during a period when he was away from active music promotion speaks to how deep and lasting his influence has been. This isn't a flash-in-the-pan achievement that happened and then faded, this is sustained impact that continued to resonate even during his absence and that educators recognized as worthy of including in educational materials. The textbook inclusion also comes at an interesting moment in K-pop's evolution because we're seeing the genre reach a new level of global establishment and staying power. K-pop is no longer trying to break into Western markets, it's already there, it's already part of the global music landscape in an established and permanent way. Having a K-pop artist in school textbooks confirms this established status and signals that this is not a trend that will disappear but rather a lasting change in how global popular music operates and how cultural exchange functions in the 21st century. Let me address what this means for future generations of Korean and Asian artists because Jungkook being first means he's opening a door that others can now walk through. Once the precedent is established that Korean singers can and should be included in American educational materials, it becomes easier for other deserving artists to achieve similar recognition in the future. Jungkook is paving the way, showing that it's possible, demonstrating the level of impact and significance required, and making it normal rather than exceptional for Korean artists to be included in Western educational and cultural institutions. For young Koreans and Asian Americans who aspire to careers in music or entertainment, seeing Jungkook featured in school textbooks sends a powerful message about what's achievable. It expands the realm of possibility, it provides a concrete example of Asian artists achieving the highest levels of recognition and legitimacy in Western markets and institutions, and it demonstrates that maintaining authentic connection to Korean language and culture is not a barrier to this kind of success but can actually be part of what makes an artist significant and worthy of study. The global implications of this achievement are also worth considering because American textbooks and American educational standards often influence education in other countries around the world. When American educators decide that Jungkook is significant enough to include in textbooks, that sends a signal globally about his importance and impact. Educational institutions in other countries may take note and consider similar inclusions in their own materials. This creates a ripple effect where Jungkook's recognition in American education potentially leads to recognition in educational systems around the world. Let's also talk about the research and evaluation process that goes into textbook inclusion because this isn't a casual decision or something that happens quickly. Educational publishers and curriculum developers spend years researching, evaluating, and deciding what content to include in textbooks. They consult with educators, subject matter experts, cultural specialists, and various stakeholders to ensure that what goes into textbooks is accurate, significant, and educationally valuable. The fact that Jungkook made it through this rigorous evaluation process and was deemed worthy of inclusion represents extensive validation of his impact and significance from educational professionals who have no bias toward K-pop or Korean culture but are simply evaluating global cultural significance objectively. This textbook inclusion also serves an important function in combating stereotypes and expanding understanding of Asian culture beyond limited or outdated representations. For too long, Asian culture in American education was presented primarily through historical lenses, through traditional art forms, through ancient history, without adequate attention to contemporary Asian culture and its global influence. By including Jungkook, American textbooks are updating and expanding how they present Asian culture to students, showing them that Asian influence in global culture is not just historical but very much present and powerful in contemporary times. The language aspect of this achievement is particularly significant because Jungkook achieved this recognition while singing primarily in Korean, not in English. He didn't have to abandon his language or fully conform to Western musical norms to achieve this level of recognition. His inclusion in American textbooks while maintaining authentic Korean identity sends a message that American cultural institutions are capable of recognizing and valuing artists and culture from around the world without requiring those artists to completely westernize or abandon their cultural identity. This represents progress in how American education and culture engage with global diversity. I want to talk about the responsibility and pressure that might come with this kind of recognition because being featured in school textbooks means being held up as an example and a representative figure. Jungkook is now in a position where American students will learn about him, will study his career and impact, will potentially use him as an example in essays and projects. That's a form of scrutiny and responsibility that goes beyond just being a successful artist. How he conducts himself, how he uses his platform, the messages he conveys through his music and public presence, all of this takes on additional weight when he's being presented to students as a significant cultural figure worthy of study. Fortunately, Jungkook has demonstrated throughout his career the kind of professionalism, humility, work ethic, and positive influence that makes him well suited to this role as a figure that students learn about. His dedication to his craft, his respectful treatment of fans and others, his willingness to use his platform for positive messages, his authentic personality, these are all qualities that make him a good example and role model for young people to learn about. The educators who decided to include him in textbooks presumably evaluated these character factors alongside his achievements and determined that he represents the kind of figure that students can learn valuable lessons from. The documentation of this achievement is also important because textbook inclusion creates a permanent record that will exist for years or potentially decades. Long after this era of music has passed, long after current fans have grown older, the textbooks being used today will still exist in libraries and archives, preserving Jungkook's story and significance for future researchers and historians. This is how history gets recorded and preserved, through these kinds of official educational materials, and Jungkook's inclusion ensures that his impact will be remembered and studied by future generations trying to understand this era of global cultural history. Let me also address the comparison to other artists because Jungkook being the first Korean singer in American textbooks invites consideration of what made him achieve this before other K-pop artists or other Korean musicians. Part of it is certainly timing. He came along at the right moment when K-pop was reaching new heights of global influence and when educational institutions were becoming more internationally minded and inclusive in their curricula. Part of it is the specific achievements and impact of both his solo career and his work with BTS. Part of it is the cultural significance of what he represents in terms of globalization and cultural exchange. All of these factors combine to make him the first to reach this particular milestone. But I think it's also important to note that being first doesn't diminish other artists or suggest he's the only one deserving of this recognition. Rather, being first means bearing the additional challenge and pressure of breaking down barriers and proving that Korean singers can and should be included in American educational materials. Now that he's done that, it becomes easier for other deserving artists to achieve similar recognition in the future. Jungkook is opening doors and creating pathways, which is itself an important contribution to Korean music and culture globally. The intersection of this textbook achievement with Jungkook's other accomplishments creates a comprehensive picture of an artist who has reached the highest levels of success across multiple metrics. Commercial success, critical recognition, cultural impact, and now educational inclusion all combine to demonstrate an artist who has achieved significance across every dimension of what it means to be influential and important in global popular music. Very few artists achieve this kind of comprehensive success and recognition, and the fact that Jungkook has done so while maintaining authentic Korean identity and while being part of the K-pop industry makes it all the more remarkable. Looking forward, this textbook inclusion likely signals more recognition and integration of K-pop and Korean culture into American institutional frameworks. If educational institutions are including K-pop artists in textbooks, it's likely that we'll see similar inclusion in other cultural and institutional contexts going forward. Museums might develop K-pop exhibitions, academic institutions might create K-pop studies programs, cultural organizations might develop educational programming around Korean music and its global impact. Jungkook's textbook inclusion is potentially just the beginning of a broader institutional recognition of K-pop's cultural significance. For ARMY and fans who have supported Jungkook throughout his career, this achievement represents vindication and pride. They've always believed in his talent and significance, they've always known he was special and impactful, and now that belief is being validated in one of the most official and lasting ways possible through inclusion in educational materials that will teach future generations about his achievements. There's a special satisfaction in seeing someone you've supported and believed in receive this kind of recognition that confirms they were always worthy of the devotion and support they received. In conclusion, Jungkook becoming the first Korean singer featured in American school textbooks represents far more than just an individual achievement or career milestone. This is a historic moment that demonstrates how far K-pop has come, how Korean culture has achieved unprecedented influence globally, how Asian artists are breaking through barriers that once seemed impossible to overcome, and how cultural exchange and globalization are creating a world where talent and impact transcend geographic and linguistic boundaries. When American students open their textbooks and learn about Jungkook, they're not just learning about one artist, they're learning about cultural change, global connection, and the expanding boundaries of what's possible in art and entertainment. That's the power of this achievement, and that's why Jungkook's textbook inclusion proves that K-pop has truly transcended everything. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you found this analysis of Jungkook's historic textbook inclusion meaningful, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content exploring K-pop's global impact and cultural significance. Let me know in the comments how you feel about this achievement and what you think it means for the future of K-pop and Korean culture globally. Share this video with other fans who will appreciate the significance of this milestone. I'll see you in the next video.